everybody, and welcome to our Modern Masters set review. Oh, yeah.
It's here. It's finally here after so long.
I'm Evan Irwin. That's Brad Nelson.
I am Brad Nelson.
He is all day. And you are going to be joining us for the next however long this lasts.
I mean, it could take forever because we know all these cards this time, and we love all these cards.
We're going to have all these cool little stories about all these cards. It's going to be great. Now, for those who don't really know what's going on here, Modern Masters is a very special set that Wizards made where they only wanted to include 8th edition / Mirrodin all the way up until right before Zendikar.
Yep.
And in that, they wanted to create a unique limited environment, which they did. And they then wanted to not make too much of it to not freak out those who had these cards already. In doing so, they made everyone freak out because there are only going to be so many of these, and like, oh my God, I need to get like all my Tarmogoyfs and all my foil Tarmogoyfs, and each box is smaller. There's 24 packs in the box instead of 36, but it has a foil in each pack, and it's just it's like they built a cube and then they sold it.
and I like that it's 24 pack just because it's a draft in a box.
It really
You don't have
is.
this extra stuff sitting around. It's just draft in a box, and
Yes.
it's awesome.
It's true. Now, you could look at it in two ways. You could say that this is like the draft in the box and you're all good, which it is because the cards are amazing. But when it comes to normal draft, you have those 8 extra packs because, or those 12 extra packs rather, because those are prizes.
Yeah.
So you run your draft and the 12 packs are prizes, and now it is. Well, this set's so good. The drafting is the prize.
Yep.
It's amazing. So what we're doing this time is a little bit different. Like, you guys have all the review videos in front of you. We wanted to give you guys all the goodies. You can go slice and dice how you want, or you can join me and Brad for the entire journey.
Yeah, or you can just use the old model and just only give yourself one a day.
Yeah, pace yourself. Don't get it all at once. Doctor recommends only one set review video per day.
Your mind might explode if you watch more.
It's true.
We don't want the lawsuits and things like that.
We indemnify ourselves against all of your interests.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Now, we're going to start today with the white cards.
Yes.
We start with Cold Snap and a Darkar Valkyrie.
It's an awesome card. I think I remember playing with it the one time I played Cold Snap Limited and then stopped playing Cold Snap Limited.
That's pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
You play it that one time, right? Because you're kind of like, well, I want to see, and then you're like, this feels bad.
Yeah,
I don't like what I'm doing anymore.
And they had this ripple effect where if you had like the same cards that had ripple, you could like just go through your whole deck and find them. And like, I played my one that I had 4 copies of and I'd missed. And then my opponent played the one where he had 3 copies of and he had all of them.
3, obviously.
I was just like, this is a horrible format.
Well, like Zach Hill, I think he got 2nd place at Grand Prix Kansas City because like he figured out no one drafted the white ripple cards, so he got like 8 of them. And I'm like, this is your draft format. This is sad. It just felt bad. Like, I knew what they were trying to do. But anyway, for Darkar Valkyrie itself, like, this card in limited is ridiculous.
If it comes into play and you untap with it, it's so difficult to beat because its activated ability is unbelievable.
Right.
In this format, though, you're not going to really see it like kill a lot of creatures. There's not a ton of actual straight up, your guy is dead,
right,
and it will go to the graveyard effects. Like,
unless it's in combat, which is sort of what they're pushing towards. A lot of it's sort of trick based, but this guy makes combat like miserable. If you have any trick, their blocks suck, and if they just block, it probably sucks because Valkyrie saves anything. The fact that it has vigilance is just like it's just to break off.
It's
just stick it in and break it off.
Yeah, if this card comes into play and you live with it, like you're gonna win the game. It's almost impossible. Especially because it's Modern Masters and almost every other creature has a come into play because it's Modern Masters. You said it's cube in a box.
It's a cube in a box. It's unreal.
Yeah.
And that's a really good one. Now, Amaru Scout, this guy is the key to the White Rebels deck.
When I saw this in the spoiler, I was just like, they brought back Common Rebels. I knew it was going to be an awesome limited form, and it was going to cater to everyone that has drafted all of these sets. And that, like, I started drafting them, and I loved in Time Spiral getting to draft the Rebels.
Man, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
Time Spiral was great. You could just like there was the Black-White Rebel deck, and I think they've done a lot of that here in Modern Masters. We'll see it in Black too, where you can just run the chain. Like, the idea is to run the chain all the way up the best you can. Or if you don't have the entire chain here, you do have the ability to just go find really awesome cards that all cost 3 or less, all in the Rebel deck.
And there's even removal. We'll get to that later. Like, there's a removal spell that's a Rebel. You can go dig it up, and it's awesome. And I love it because you can really see in this set so many awesome Time Spiral cards. There's a lot of awesome commons because that format was amazing. If you ever if you ever get an opportunity to play it on Magic Online, if they ever go back to it, go try that out. But you'll get your taste of it when you get to draft this set.
Absolutely. And I think this one, if you enjoy Rebels as much as I think you will, like, if you ever see the time spiral, the triple time spiral queues or the full time spiral block queues, like they are totally worth it. They are a ton of fun. Amaru Scout is the key, and that's a card I think you pick early because it just puts you directly in an archetype.
Yeah, it's a common that no one else wants, and you can grab it. If no one else wants to be rebels, you can just get them all, and you just get them every turn. So
you get to wheel them late because no one wants like the Blight Speakers or whatever. We'll get to there later. Amaru Seekers just follows right into it.
Yep.
You want to first pick that. You want to first pick the Scout, second pick the Seekers. Like,
yeah, and this is the card you go for because it has evasion, and you just get to keep hitting your opponent. And I mean, if they have an artifact, sure, whatever. But like, you're taking all the white creatures, so it doesn't really matter because you have all the rebels anyway. So this guy gets through. He really does his job. He does look way weaker than like the way new cards look these days, but he's your like fighter. He's
a heck of a gray ogre.
Yeah.
He's a good man. I mean, they now call this intimidate, but back then it was the white fear, and are they going to do fear and white? Like, what are they going to call it? It's totally weird. But ultimately, like this guy is actually a workhorse.
Yeah. This
guy will end games, and you will be surprised by it.
Especially one that's just free. It's just like you get him at the end of the turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Just EOT, a 2/2 you can't block ever, and then get you. Trick. Card's sweet. Angel's Grace. Sick one.
Hate this card because it's like the decks that it runs, it's like super powerful, and like I've played against it a couple times, and I've always lost to it because it's like, what could they have? They couldn't have anything, and then you just like play that, and you just die. And split seconds, just I don't like split second. It just wins.
I love split second. This is the you guarantee you're going to get the last combat stamp.
Yeah.
I'm going to get one. I guarantee I'm going to get one. I don't know if it's going to be the alpha at the end, but like, it's a heck of a fog. It stops all of their burn as well, where fog doesn't. This is a card I know was reprinted for certain decks, to be able to use it and then do something stupid, with their life or deal damage to everything.
You cast this, then you cast Ad Nauseam, you draw your entire deck, and you're like, I'm at -30, but I don't care.
You got me. Like, it's fine. So yeah, Angel's Grace is used in that way, but in terms of limited, like, this just blows you out.
Yeah, it is actually a decent fog trick. I don't know if this format's going to want this. Definitely don't first pick this. This is not a card. Like, you'll will this, or this might just end up in your sideboard, and you want it for very specific matchups. But don't just like this format looks really good, but it isn't like, oh my god, it's like the cube. You just have to take the rare. It's like the best card. Like
the rare's not always going to be the best card, and that's an important thing to remember. But as being rare, it's not the best card, but you'll probably get it late. You should get it late.
Yeah.
But again, when you like the only thing you lose to is a burn spell, you'll want this. Or when you're in a matchup where it's like all aggro versus all aggro, you're on the draw. You need something that lets you get that one more turn. This card always gives it to you.
That's it.
It's a sweet one. Auriok Salvagers got bumped.
I mean,
big bumps.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I like my form converted mana cost spells that have, incremental advantage with artifacts. I kind of like them.
No trading posts need to be mentioned.
I might have played a lot with this guy back in the day.
This guy was sweet, man.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I like this card a lot. It was used in like infinite mana combos and stuff.
Was it? Because I just used it for value.
Value?
There was a deck. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it had. But I remember it was like awesome, and I would just like bring back these artifacts. I don't even remember anything. I just know that I won tournaments with this guy, and it took like 40 turns, and my opponents were miserable.
All I remember is I won a lot, and I hated it. This guy did get the bump. This guy is sweet. He is from Fifth Dawn. I mean, this is a card that I think just surprised everyone later when it was used to cycle through like the 1 mana artifacts, the 1 mana spell bombs, that type of stuff.
And the moment that I saw this is my curious thing about this entire set. I'm curious if the cards they selected for the set were strictly for limited, like Auriok Salvagers, or if they like in their future league had this deck with this guy. And when I saw this card on the spoiler, I was just like, And I just went deep in the tank for like an hour trying to think like, can I get away with playing this in Modern? Like, I really want to play against our deck. I want to find it. Like, if you guys can find it for me, I will just love you forever.
I feel like if there is a deck that makes this guy stupidly good in Modern, it's too good. You know what I mean? Like, that deck is probably too good if this is the engine that actually drives it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but in Limited, he's a fine man. There are a non-zero amount of one casting cost artifacts in this set that you can use with them.
They're very gross ones too. It's like Aether Spellbomb. If you ever get that,
Pyrite Spellbomb,
yeah, those are awesome. Like if you can first pick this card and just grab those cards, you'll have the most fun deck you've ever played with. I guarantee it.
Like, get it back, get you, get it back, get you, get it back,
yeah,
get you.
you just keep bouncing guys, and like if they don't have any guys, they're like, oh, I'm not gonna play, and you're like, all right, I'll get it back and draw a card. I'm cool. Like that's a good.
Salvagers, awesome. Avian Changeling. This guy's a rogue, by the way.
Well, yeah.
And a teenage mutant, not teenage, a mutant Ninja Turtle. We are one creature type away from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
I'm
just one.
We need to get like the Teen Wolf set. Like.
I know. I need one teenager wizards, one teenager.
That's it. Like, come on. What was that? The cloistered youth. Like, why wasn't she a teenager?
Exactly.
I know.
And then we could have had it all.
I think there's actually one really important creature type this card is. Rebel.
Yes, absolutely rebel. This card is searchable. This card triggers. This card is, you can find it. You can work with it. It's just a good card by itself. It's still a Windrake. Like,
but when you put a card like this in a like Lorwyn, where they had the tribals, it's cool. But when you put it in Modern Masters, when you have rebels and come into place from other creature types and like very unique things, like you have Mad Auntie and Blight Speaker, so like or like Blight Agent. I don't remember the Blight Speaker. Yeah. So when you activate, you get this, and it gets the effect from the Mad Auntie, and you can regenerate. And like, there's so many like changelings are going to be huge in this format. I can guarantee it because there's so many really powerful cards that don't have enough of their tribals to go on. So these cards connect all of them.
It was cool. I actually watched the last Magic Cruise, the 2012 Magic Cruise. Aaron's Forsyth gave an hour-long talk where he talked about like Magic from I think he called it Ravnica to Ravnica. And he's like, with Ravnica, after Ravnica, we did Time Spiral did blah, Expedited blah. And he said, when we went to Lorwyn, he was like, what do we do? Well, we do another tribal set. And he's like, well, I played a little bit of Onslaught Seal deck to try to see sort of how the last tribal set worked. And he was like, you didn't actually have a lot of tribal interactions in Onslaught. A lot of it was like big dumb creatures and big blowout spells, and like the one time he triggered anything, like it was worthless. It was meaningless.
And that format also just was like disguised by all the morphing. That was the real thing.
Yeah, he was like morphs were a big thing, but like the actual beast type and the elf type and the goblin type and constructed they mattered obviously, but not in limited. And he was like, so Lorwyn was Onslaught to the max, as he called it. And like to actually make creature types matter, you got to give them all the creature types. And I think they really ran with it. I love the idea of changelings. I love how they look. I love that sort of like bubbly, liquidy thing where they can always be whatever they need to be.
Well, I mean, but
this guy's an all-star common.
I feel like it's like some like afternoon child show. Like I feel like all those other birds are just making fun of him for just being weird. He can't fit in anywhere. He tries to look.
Avian.
Yeah, he tries to look like them, but he's not really them. And
I like how we've already personified this guy, giving him emotions and feelings. Like Blinding Beam, this card was unbelievable in Mirrored and Limited.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I first picked that card a lot.
Yeah, if you want a racing card, Angel's Grace is a very fringe one. This card is a bomb.
It will blow them out.
And if,
they just don't know when they tap and they don't untap. Oh.
And if you don't believe us, just pass it.
That's
and
cool.
we'll just see what happens. Like you'll find out eventually what this card can do to you.
You don't have to believe our years of experience. I'm just telling you, this card is going to hurt because it's not just the tap. Because you're like used to it with Feeling of Dread and things like that these days. It's when you go to your next turn and you go, uh-oh.
Well, it's also the way that all these cards work and how faster Magic is now. It's a more aggressive game.
Yes.
So because of that, cards like this got better, and this card was already insane back then. And you were attacking with like 2/2s for 4.
And 3/3s for 5, and you were loving it, man. That was good times, man. And you were just blinding beam, get you, and then like Viridian Crossbow you out. Like that was good times. That card is sweet. Blinding Beam will do good work for you. Bound in Silence. This is the Rebel Aura.
That's it.
This is what you find. Thank you, Future Sight. This card is sweet.
Oh, and because it's instant speed, you can do whatever you want. You can like let them attack and then put it on a guy so he can't block. You can just throw it. So like the reason you would do that is because you would trick them into attacking with more than they wanted to.
Right.
But you can also just put on their big guy that has haste. You can just get it into play whenever you want. So it's like an amazing effect because you always have the time. Like if you don't need to use it, you can just go get more rebels. But that one time, you just waste all your mana and you kill something. And it's an awesome card. Especially
it does
multiples.
all the things, and multiples in the Rebel deck, it's obviously ridiculous. But pacifism is still good. You can have 0 rebels other than this card, and you're still going to play it.
Yeah,
it's still a piece of removal. Removal is actually very valuable in this set, and this card will see a ton of play both in like the black rebels and the white rebels, and any deck that has white mana will happily see this card.
Oh, for sure.
Like you'll want to you don't pick it over bombs, but I mean it's removal. You pick it right behind the bombs.
You pick this also over other good removal spells because it doesn't get the card off the board or stop its activated abilities. So that's like very important.
Right.
But it's still a very good piece of removal. Like it's
And
like
it's tutorable.
third tier removal. Yeah, it's tutorable. So even if you have one of a 2/1 that costs 2 mana, that's fine because it's just still a 2/1 for 2.
Right.
But later on in the game, it can still just get a piece of removal. So you technically have 2 of these kind of.
Right, so you can sort of begin pseudo saying every Rebel Searcher I have that goes for 3 or less suddenly becomes like another copy of Bound in Silence. Whereas your good old pacifism is great, but it's just the one in your deck and that's it. You would need something, you know, to go find it. And this set gives you lots of those options. Good old Sins Enlistment. Woo!
I mean, there are
Makes the
some
dorks.
cards that work well with these tokens or just 1/1 bodies and things. There are a couple, but like I never liked this card to begin with, and like
Yeah, back in the day I was like, eh.
Yeah.
It
like
was
you're-
okay back then. This is actually not the best, you know,
No.
limited bomb thing. It's just some dorks, and like later in the game, you want to make some more dorks, and you want to be able to use them. And there's ways you can actually use them in white, but
well, you're chump blocking. Like
yeah, you're jumping.
if you have a lot of fly, like this is a blue-white skies kind of filler. It's just like when you lay out your deck and you're just like, so how do I beat a 4/4?
How do I beat like a crawl worm?
Yeah.
And you're like, I have no idea. I hope they don't give it trample because
Yeah.
my 1/1s have to block all day. So, and if that's what that does for you, then that's terrific. You know, you just 2 chumps for 1 card. You draw a land. I got more chumps. I draw a land. I got more chumps.
So I mean that's what Rechase really did, and it proved it in the limited format. They never made too many powerful Retrace cards, like the extremely powerful. But it was awesome when I played cards like this in limited because it doesn't look good the first time you play it, but when you draw those 2 extra lands you don't need, they finally become things, and
Right.
just getting to do anything with an extra mana.
Then it becomes
is
powerful.
Huge. Yeah.
Right? Then you become like, oh, I forgot that was in your graveyard,
Yeah.
and you're like, yep, and let's do it again. You know, like absolutely. I wish, like for me, the one of the cool things is you're just like randomly going to lose those 2 Kithkin soldiers from Cloudgo Ranger,
Yeah.
and your opponent's gonna be real proud of himself for doing that. You know, because he's like, yeah, now you can activate. Wait a minute. Like, Retrace Sins Enlistment. Aw.
Oh,
Like,
so we're just like, oh, the person that luckily opened Cloudgo Ranger needs some more help. Like, let's feel bad for the Cloudgo Ranger
We're getting
guy.
the Cloudgo Ranger. We're getting there right here.
Yeah.
This card, it's pretty interesting to me that it stayed an uncommon.
Oh yeah, it was so much of a rare.
I know, like it was a really interesting thing I learned from R&D at the time was they were like, we wish we had made Cloudgo Ranger rare so people would have noticed how good it is. Like people, like back in the day when Lorwyn came out, I mean, yes, it was obviously unreal, but when it first came out, everybody's just like, they didn't notice it, they didn't play, you know, they didn't put it in decks, they didn't play with it. You know, it took block and it took that Kithkin deck to really show people this is a real card.
It took that Kithkin deck that I lost to in the top 8 of a PTQ I played in Hollywood.
Now I played Kithkin to a top 8 and then I lost.
Did you play Spectral Procession?
3 dudes?
Was it good?
It was in fact good.
It was in fact good.
It was in fact pretty decent.
Yeah.
It was all right.
I'll never let it die. I don't know why.
Neither will anybody else, and that's okay with me. You know, things I'm famous for. But, you know, I did lose to Elementals. But regardless, Cloudgo Ranger is just unbelievable. And, wow, he's just a first pick bomb. He's just amazing.
Like, I don't think there'll ever come a time in Magic where this card wouldn't be standard playable. Like think about like the decks that I've been playing lately, like you know, like the Act 2s and the Junk Aristocrats and things like that. Like
Card would be unreal.
this would be a 1 or 2 of in that deck, no matter what. Maybe
Absolutely.
for sure, probably a 2 of. It's like an unbelievably awesome card.
It's 6 power, 6 toughness, 4 guys. Like it gives itself evasion. I mean, it's funny to me when you look back and like no one respected it, no one liked it when it was spoiled, no one deck built it, no one deck built with it until it was shown in block.
And then no one liked when people were playing with it. And
Yeah,
it was,
then
like,
they started
so
complaining
frustrating.
about it. Like, dude, really? You called this limited trash 2 months ago. Now it's destroying you constructed, and now it's overpowered. Like, shut up.
And it's sweet art.
It's awesome art. I'm glad actually that they didn't change it.
Yeah.
Because I need huge goats and whatever in my life. Court Homunculus. Yeah.
I mean, I like this guy. I think this is there to just be an early card for the artifact decks. I don't know how good the artifact decks are yet. I definitely have to see them. But the best part about the artifacts in this format is they're all so bad in other decks, and that's something that like you usually don't see in limited formats. There's always like that deck that it's like, well, this deck is awesome if you get all the pieces, but so many of the pieces go into all the other decks.
Right.
But they made sure not to do that.
Yeah, for me, it's like, this is the type of card that if you come across it in the spoiler, it's like the canary in the mine. It's like, you know they didn't just randomly include this card in Modern Masters. Like, there's a reason this white, you know, Savannah Lines or whatever, when you have an artifact, is there and is real and is good because they gave you all the other pieces.
Yeah.
Now, what those pieces are and how you use them and how other decks use them, that's sort of what you figure out. But this isn't anywhere near like a first pick, whatever. But this is a card that you can probably wheel when you are that deck.
Oh, yeah.
Because people are never going to respect this card. Like
No.
you can almost always wheel this card if you are in this deck.
Yeah, and I think the Artifact deck is probably good for that because that's just what Magic is. It's a self-correcting game where if a card is bad, but it's okay, but it's not that great, and no one takes it, you can take all of them or what kind of strategy, and now that strategy is good because everyone's fighting around everything else.
I mean, I want to play the 4-court homunculus deck.
Are you kidding me? I forced Esper every time in
Like in
shards.
Shards?
Yeah, so like if I draft this format, like if I get the opportunity, that one time that like we get a box and I'm just like, all right, let's draft this format.
Sure.
I'm 100% going Artifacts because I'm trying to live my dream. Like I loved this deck. We're getting to one of my favorite cards in the set.
Can't go to value. You got to live the dream. All right, Court Homunculus is the thing, and we'll keep going here because Dispeller's Capsule is awesome.
It's a very mediocre spell. It's fine.
Well, it's good because it works with Homunculi. It's good because it cards like this, the seal of whatever cards, literally stop them from playing things.
That's true.
If you have Dispeller's Capsule on the board, they will not play certain cards in their hand, whether they're enchantments or artifacts, because they know that you have it. Yeah. Like, it's literally better to be out on the board than to be in your hand because you are stopping them from playing the huge artifact or the Bound in Silence or whatever it is because you're like, well, you want to play it, you're just going to lose it.
Oh, yeah.
And they know that, so then all of a sudden they have to play around that. So that's why I like this card a lot. Like, it did a lot of that in Shards, too.
And it also works well with a lot of cards like RX Salvagers, Court Homunculus. Like, there's other cards going in that it's just going to work
just
well
with white, just the ones that we've already spoken of. I mean, you can already see the pieces being put together.
And if some lucky guy opens a Sword of Fire and Ice, you can kill it, and you can just make fun of him for being able to kill it.
Or you can play this, and he won't ever play it.
I mean, I think you should just play it, because then you just force them to pay 3 mana, too.
I mean, ultimately, you have to come to a point where you make them use the Dispeller's Capsule, but a lot of times they then have to like change everything they're doing to plan on that.
Just for 1 mana, yeah.
Right, and then then they start doing like then you start to sort of feel them baiting you.
Yeah.
You're like, well, that's a sort of fire now she just ran out there. What is it that you really have that is going to actually destroy him? Because I can just pay 3 mana and kill it,
I don't think they're, like...
There's some head games in there.
Even if they have a bit better artifact, it's like, well, I'm not going to beat this Sword of Fire. So I guess I got to kill it. Hope I rip a different card.
Swear to God, they'll have another one. But is what it is now.
All right, so... For anyone that joined the game in the last couple years,
oh my God,
I want you to know that this card is the 2nd best Planeswalker of all time, and if you play with it, it's insane. Wow. And if your opponent plays it, it's miserable.
It is absolutely a powerhouse of my mic is trying to fold in on itself. All right. It is.
Will it create its own black hole?
It will, just like this card, because. Guys, I don't know how to put this, but they couldn't print Jace the Mind Sculptor in this set, so they printed Elspeth Knight Errant instead.
Yep.
It is so unbelievably powerful. Just there are entire decks that can't beat this card. Like, just you play it and they're just done, and you just play guys and boost them in the air and plus.
If you open this in a draft, like you windmill slam it and then you do a lap around the table.
High five if you open the foil one.
Yeah, like, I'm not even saying value. I'm saying just the richness of getting to play it. It just fulfills every dream you've ever had for Magic because your opponents can't beat it. Like, not only can you make chump blockers when you're behind, you can throw your guys in the air and kill them. Or if the game goes forever, all your guys are just indestructible. And you're just like, ha!
Forever. Just balls. I mean, like, oh my God. At the time, because I was there when Shards was spoiled, and I was there when Shards was released, and I was there when Elspeth, was not the super exciting, Planeswalker from Shards, and I was there when she just became the 2nd best Planeswalker of all time, and I've played with her in Cube for years now, and she is absolutely unreal. There's just no doubt about it. This is the card I think I want to. I would rather have this than Sword of Fire and Ice every day.
No, this card is this is
unreal.
The best card in the set. I'll just say it because it's the 2nd best Planeswalker of all time, and it has the best. It's the best limited Planeswalker of all time. It's by far the best limited one.
Not close. Jace the Mind Sculptor is amazing. He's not the best limited card.
I mean, that to
Best
be fair,
limited
we
Planeswalker.
only got to see Jason's Zendikar block, so it wasn't that good because it was aggressive. So
It was a
maybe
super
it was
aggressive
better.
format.
Yeah,
It might be.
it might have been
I
actually
mean,
better.
and
in
obviously
Elefants.
he's amazing in Cube because you can
Yeah.
build those control decks, and the same here. But like, oh, I'm just trying to like, while we have this moment, while me and you, while we have
Us.
this time together.
I'm here too, Evan.
While Brad is, while we have this time together, I'm just like, you guys need to know how awesome this card is. I need to officially explain how much I love this card and that Wizards will never make another one like it. Like,
No.
this is pushing. They push too hard. You know, like those days
they-
were all about pushing hard.
They
and see where the
experimented.
limits
Like the
are.
first 5 Planeswalkers were fine, but they weren't super powerful. They were actually, I think they were the best.
They were
design.
really fantastic
Yeah.
designs. Beyond Liliana Vess,
Yeah.
I thought all of them were actually really brilliant.
Yeah,
And
and
have worked really well over the years.
and then they're like, let's just make the best ones ever.
They just, you know, it's one of those where it's such a new card type.
Yeah.
They can make mistakes, and by God, they made them.
Yeah.
They were just like, let's make her pluses, 2 +1s. Like you could have made that first ability a -1, and the card would have been just fine. It would have been okay.
Yeah, because
But
both are pluses. It's just so.
it's so hard because it's not just about making a dude. You pay 4 mana, I made a dude. No. 4 mana, I made a dude. She has 5 loyalty. You have to get past this dude, all the other dudes, and deal 5 damage in order for her to die, for her to not continue to make advantage every single turn.
If you have to start attacking but can't kill her, then she gets to just make one of your guys +3/+3 and attack and flying and just kill you. It's just so good.
Oh, all right. So
Anyway,
we just had to take this time because, guys, Elspeth is unbelievable. Wow.
yeah.
Ethersworn Canonist. This is a good man. He's in here
Is it
for
a
the
he or a
modern
she?
format. Well, this is a good woman. This is a good metal thing, and I'm sure very feminine metal curves or something. What the hell's going on here?
And metal hair.
I don't know. Well, maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know. Either way, this card is here for modern. Like this is they reprinted this card because modern decks use Ethersworn Canonist to help against storm decks and all that type of stuff. But ultimately, as we discussed before, while this set is geared to put more modern cards out there in the world, I don't think it's really accomplishing that goal because they have promised to make so little of it that everybody kind of hoards it and or understands that this set is actually more rare than the cards it's reprinting, than the sets it's reprinting from. So take that how you want.
I'm okay with that because the one thing is Star City Games, I still have a card I want and it's in this set, and at least there should be at least one opportunity for me to get them.
Yes.
Like, I will get them.
You too can order them on StarCityGames.com. But for Ethersworn Canonist, for what it's worth, in Limited, he's a bear. That's a thing. He works with Homunculus. That's a thing. He actually can stop your opponent from doing some various things. There's a point where your opponent wants to do trick and trick, or burn spell and play a guy, or play a guy that has a cool ability, attack, play something else, go, and he just doesn't let them do that. There are times when you randomly just dagger people.
Oh yeah, no, it's a fine bear. You will see some play in Limited. I think this is a format where you still just play all your 2/2s for 2 like that. We've learned that grizzly bears are good in Magic now. It's just they're good, they're efficient, and they do their job. And so there's times where if your opponent just has 7 lands and just attacks you, and you do something and you have a trick, and then he's like, well, I want to play this trick, but I need to play this blocker, and it actually has this tension. So I think it's a fine card. It's another really good piece for the artifact deck.
Absolutely. I think the deck. I think the card is sweet. I think the deck you build around it is really nice. I know why it's in the set, but I don't think it's going to be why it's ultimately in the set. If that makes sense. So here's a downgrade.
Yes.
Few Killer's Verdict was a rare. Now it's an uncommon. This card is unreal, by the way, in Limited.
Yeah,
you're just going to smash people's faces open with this thing.
If your opponent has kept his or her life total at 20 and gotten you below 10, by the time you get 6 mana and have done stuff, then they deserve an award. But I've never seen it.
I've never seen a point where I've cast a Few Killer's Verdict in all my time in Lore Unlimited, and that did not give me a giant.
This is just a threat test that gains you 10 life, and he just was dumb and he lost his beast friend.
Yeah, lol. What?
Yeah.
Well, I still gained 10 life. Sorry. This card's sweet. I can't believe they downgraded it. That's part of me. Part of me's going guys, you know how good this card is? I want to run a couple Few Killer's Verdict? Sure.
I mean,
Uber Thraggy Tusky type
yeah,
things.
I think like the format, there's enough like super powerful cards to where
A lot
like
of
this
really
isn't
aggressive
gonna,
ones.
yeah, and so I think this is a fine card, and I don't think you want to play so many 6-drops, and there's probably going to be other better ones you want to play. I think you're going to fight like, but gaining 10 life and then putting a 5 of them into play is really powerful. And I definitely think this is one of those cards that don't underestimate. You don't overestimate it. Don't like just
It's
like
not a first pick windmill slam like
Yeah.
Elspeth, but in terms of like the control decks that use like the Sin's Enlistment we talk about, to sort of buy time. This is a card I want to buy time for, like
Yes.
I want to play a 4-mana thing, then I want to retrace it, and the next time I want a few Killer's Verdict and get a 5/5 out of it.
yeah. This is a very powerful card.
Awesomely awesome card.
Yeah.
All right, so Flicker Wisp is up. Flicker Wisp is up next.
Yep.
3-mana, 3/1 flying. It blinks things.
It's good. It's
a good man.
3/1 flyers for 3 in limited have always just outperformed. They've always just been very good because your opponent has to have an answer, and if they don't, it just gets to do things. Also, 3 toughness can trade with like green creatures in the history of Magic. Like
Right.
so you can
Big
trade in
monsters.
in the early game, or you can just keep attacking. Also, just being able to blink something out even on your side to reset it, or on their side to just be able to get through in combat.
Yeah, there's lots of enter the battlefield stuff in here. I mean, we already looked at Cloudgo Ranger. Like, all right, my guy, gains flying, hits you for 5, play a Flicker Wisp, blink him out, comes back, makes guys like, and there's plenty of cards in all the other colors that you can essentially do this.
And they brought back there's Evoke in this too, so there's a lot of Evoke creatures that you can use this with too.
Right, and all the Evoke creatures were worded poorly.
Yeah.
And they all say when they leave play, not when they die.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Revelard. And all the other ones we'll get to. But
Yeah.
there's, I don't know why they worded things the way they worded things back then, but it was just wrong. But this allows you to take advantage of that wrong wording, or take advantage of those mistakes. Like
Yeah.
a lot of what Magic does is it does new things and makes mistakes doing those things, and then later it'll kind of like fix those things, but the mistakes still exist. And so this set sort of lets you look back on like, oh hey, that was a dumb way to word that. Let me show you how to abuse it. Like, okay, sure. Gleam of Resistance, the land cyclers, the basic land cyclers.
Oh man, we loved these things. I think we loved them too much. Like, there's cards that people are like, they should have some love, and then there's other cards it's like, why are you still playing this? Like, Trading Post. But like, this basic land cycling, like, I would like, the first time I drafted the set, I'm like, I'm just gonna play 15 lands and 4 of these and play 5 colors. Like that was obviously wrong, but
right. This was Conflux. Was this the whole block?
Yeah.
Reborn Conflux,
Yep.
and then shards. But yeah, in Conflux, like these were all good, wonderful cards.
Yes.
Like they fix your mana, they do good things. Like this card will surprise the hell out of your opponent and usually wreck them to pieces.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's very good. Like it's a great combat trick, but like you use this as a fixer. Like first, if you want to splash, also if you have a ton of creatures, like this works really well. You can play this in a control deck where you don't even get to use the ability. All it is 2 mana, find a basic land.
And that's fine.
Yeah, and it works, and it's wonderful. So like I love that they brought back the basic land cyclers because they make Magic more fun, in my opinion. Like I love the ability to have consistent decks.
Yeah, they smooth out your mana. They like their abilities are cool, and like none of the abilities are terrible. And my God, the blue one countered a spell or whatever. So, like the ability to have all these land cyclers, be in the set to smooth out the mana and be super impactful like they used to be. I think these cards are sweet.
Yeah, they're great.
I love it. Thank you, Wizards. Hill Karma Giant, because you need giants.
I guess, yeah, we have a giant theme going on again. This is one when I remember it's just like, it's just literally a hill giant, but it has protection from hills. It's like, I don't get it.
The hill giant that knows how to walk through the mountains, man.
Yeah, and
knows how to get through there.
I mean, it's a good guy. Like, he's just a big guy. Like, he's a little slow to the fight, I think. Like, 3/3 for 4 is not actually that great. But Mountain Walk's fine.
It's more of a sideboard card. Like, this
Yeah.
isn't a card that you first pick. This isn't a card that you pick early. This is a card you're going to get late. This is a card that you're going to wheel around the table. But it is a card that, if you're fighting a red aggressive deck, or if you're fighting a big red or whatever type of deck, like, this is a good man.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be afraid of this card because it's a serious clock against anything playing.
Or if you actually drafted the giant deck, and like for anyone that hasn't ever drafted the giant deck, like, oh, the Thunder guy's not in the set though, is he? The one that kills every guy?
No, that card was dumb.
Oh man, that's
you
the
didn't
best.
want it
That's
to
the
be.
it's the
It was
best
like
giant.
Thunderstaff, I think.
Whatever it was, I know. It was like, so it was this 5 mana 4/4 giant that when it came to play, it deals damage to all your opponent's creatures.
I think so.
Yeah, it's equal to the number of giants you control. So it was like the original bonfire, you
It
know?
was unbelievable.
It was very good.
And limited, it was
Oh,
crazy.
it dealt it to all non-giants, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but that card was awesome. But there's also a giant in red in this format that's a 4/3 for 3 that's too stupid to do anything on its own. So it needs a companion giant to help it learn.
Nice.
So that's what it is. It can't attack or block without another giant in play. And this is what you're going to want to use this for.
Absolutely. I just like the fact they kept all the artwork. Like
Yes.
most of the artwork from Lorem. I don't think they've actually replaced any of it.
Well, any of the updated artwork I think was an improvement. I haven't seen a piece of artwork that I'm just like
That I agree with.
Yeah.
And we'll find these as we go through. But like, you know, part of the Lorem's shtick and the reason I really enjoyed it was that it was this sort of storybook world. And Wizards or Magic has never had that before, and you know, that whole block gave it to us.
Yep.
I thought it was cool. Ivory Giant. There's one.
Here's
a time spiral thing.
And here's a great art upgrade. It's so sweet. Ivory Giant, it was my jam. Like, this was my card.
This card was real.
It was so good. So Suspend, look at Suspend. I mean, if you've never played with it, it kind of feels like, what, 5 turns? Like, I don't get to do something for 5 turns with this card.
Right.
But, like, Suspend was a very good tempo thing. And, like, I think that's, like, where I learned tempo, like real tempo, like true, like planning out, figuring out how my turns work, like not wanting, like, even if my card costs, like, 2 mana to suspend, there's been certain situations where, like, well, I want to wait a turn. Or, like, this guy. I've waited till turn 2, or I learned to do that because a lot of games I couldn't get lethal by the time he came out, but I could get lethal that next turn.
Which would tap all the guys.
Which would tap all the guys.
Right. Yeah, this is, I would say that, you know, it teaches you about tempo, but also sort of like turn management is a way to put that. Because suspend cards, like, they by default make you think about future turns. And then this type of card in particular makes you think about, all right, where am I going to be at in the game when this guy hits?
Yeah.
And if you haven't thought about that, or if you haven't sort of enjoyed the idea of, like, planning, all right, I go da, and then he comes in the battlefield, and then I play this pump spell, and then he's dead.
Yep.
That's a sweet feeling. It's a really cool way, like, for you to sort of see turns ahead, and these cards just give you that option.
And that's where I learned it. Like, Suspend was actually, I learned the skill set that I use to this day where when I start playing a new format, I always keep track of, like, how cards are interacting, but what turns people are killing me and how it's shifted. Like, so if we do a game of 10 and, like, some deck went 7-3, but he killed me on, like, all these different turns, I can figure out, like, how that's changing. Like, you can definitely change, like, the cards in your deck or how aggressive you get in certain situations, stuff like that. And that's all what Suspend taught me. So, like, Suspend was probably my most invaluable ability to learn how to play Magic, and, like, it's probably my favorite ability of all time, and I love that they brought that back. And
Suspend is sweet. It's like, it's a very sort of spike-ish mechanic. It's a very tournament player mechanic because it's all about, you know, figuring out your turns, like figuring out what happens in the future. For what it's worth, it's not the most easiest to understand mechanic, you know, like, because it's exiled, but it has counters, and after it's countered, it goes in the stack again, and blah blah blah.
And your opponent gets to play around it.
Yes, but your opponent knows it's coming. So is this a good card or not? Like, this is a great card.
Yeah.
It's not going to be first pick, whatever, but, you know, in sort of the mid to late pack, your 4th to 8th pick type thing. This is the type of card you see. If you wheel it, like, high five, you should just take it. It's a good card. Good man. Speaking of good men. That arrived way too late.
Good man. This guy kills all my artifacts, and I've always loved him. This is not a good man.
The excellent man who showed up in Saviors of Kamigawa.
Fashionably late.
Oh, no. Fashionably late would have been Champions.
He showed up when people were cleaning up after the party.
Actual, like, vomit all over everyone. like the windows were broken.
Cops
and, like,
already
the cops have
gone.
already came and hauled everybody off. And you're like, guys, what? What happened? It was the player base, and they're dead. Like,
the Sunday paper's already on the mat of the place. Like, it's just, like, devastation everywhere.
Yes, it's unbelievable. Like, this is the card that was supposed to save Standard from Affinity. Well, Wizards made it, like, 2 to 3 sets way too late. Affinity had just demolished Standard, had demolished FNM attendance. There was some metric, I can't remember. I think it was until Zendikar, the entire player base as a whole had not recovered from Affinity.
Oh, yeah, no.
Until that point, we had lost so many players from Affinity, like, Affinity just destroying everyone's hopes and dreams and loves, that we did not get them all back until then.
I love that, like, that's the storyline of Magic, because I got into Magic, like very competitive. The first thing that happened was Goblins was a deck and Affinity was a deck. And so me and my friend that I played with right away, I liked Goblins and Affinity. He did too. So we both bought both those decks or traded for them. Sure. And we only own Goblins and Affinity each. So we sat in his basement every night playing Goblins versus Goblins, Affinity versus Goblins, and then Affinity versus Affinity. That's all we did, and I loved Magic.
Wow.
Loved it.
Well, that's like I was trying to tell Forsyth. I'm like, when I came back to Magic, I left Magic after Exodus. I came back, and I was like, I wonder what's going on with Magic, blah, 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 MagicGathering.com. I'm like, oh, that's a cool preview card. Huh, it's called Skull Clamp? Like, that card seems really good. I haven't been in Magic in years. Yeah. And so Aaron's like, Skull Clamp brought you back to Magic? And I'm like, yeah. So I would own Magic Online. I built the Affinity deck, which is super cheap because all the Affinity cards were like commons. And I bought 4 Skull Clamps, and I was like playing in the casual room, and I'm like, cool, I can play all my stuff for free. It's awesome. And like people are calling me scumbag and like terrible words I can't say on this camera. Like it was ridiculous because little did I know that was actually, you know, the boogeyman of the format.
And post banning, Affinity was still a thing.
Yeah.
And I actually took second in a world the World's Championship qualifier or whatever. Like they had this one, like now they have PTQs in the Magic Online Championship, but before there was this one tournament a year that you had to qualify for, and first place got to go to Worlds. Mm-hmm. And I took second, and I had no idea what Worlds was. Like I had no idea. All I knew is like Arcbound Ravager and Skull Clamp, or not Skull Clamp, sorry, Shrapnel Blast were real awesome Magic cards.
They were real awesome. I mean, Kataki, man, it's just like, I tried to run Dampy Matrix back in the day because I didn't want to play Affinity, and no.
I mean, decks used to run, like you would play like a mono green elf deck, and you would just run 4 Viridian Corruptor, which is just a Viridian Shaman, sorry, it's just a 3-mana 2/2 that comes into play, destroys an artifact, and 4 of a card called Oxidize, which was green instant, destroy an artifact.
It can't be regenerated.
It can't be regenerated. You would play 4 of this main deck, like a card that just destroys an artifact.
Main deck, and you would still lose to Affinity.
You would all the time.
I mean, like handily, not like a little. Like get rolled. It was unreal.
The deck was so good.
All right, so to bring it back to Kataki, he's just not good in draft.
And then he's still too late. Like this is gonna be like Modern Masters is gonna be the first time that a Kataki sees an Arcbound Ravager. They're just like shake hands. They don't even know they're enemies. They're just like, oh, I've never seen you before. How are you doing?
All right, I'm randomly hose the artifact deck. All right, sure. Just not a card. Like he's just a bear, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, he's just a bear who's randomly going to hose your your opponent's artifact deck. And if you're running the Court Homunculus deck, he's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. Kithkin Greatheart, this man was awesome in Limited back in the day. He was a good man.
He was good because it works off of all of the changelings. Like, and there's a ton more in Lorwyn, but like you don't have to play him in a giant deck if you just have an Avian Changeling. Right. You have this guy, or Avian Shapeshifter. Yeah. This guy gets turned on, and he just becomes a 3/2 first strike. And I don't know if you guys know how good first strike is, but like it's pretty good, and we all know how good first strike is.
2 mana 3/2 first strike. Woo! Yeah. I'm telling you, man, just for 2 mana, like, this is the guy you run on turn 2, and then turn 3 you play the Avian Changeling, and then, like, you swing for 3 first strike, and then all of a sudden you got 5 every turn, and that is a legitimate way to kill them dead quickly.
Yeah. I always thought, like, I always gave this card a storyline back when I played with it, and I was like, why does a giant give a Kithkin first strike? And I really feel like it's like, if I don't show him how good I am, he's going to eat me. Like, I just have to really prove to him how awesome I am.
Don't eat me, I'm scarier now. Okay.
That's just how I thought about the card. It's just like, why would a giant make something faster? Like, I don't get why a giant makes it faster.
It's funny. I mean, like, if you read the flavor text, a curious giant singles out a little one to follow for a few days. And I'm like, and the art's cool. He's chasing away the elf warriors who are, like, freaking out because it's a giant. When the guy probably thinks, like, he's the scary one, right? Yeah. I think that's awesome. Meadow Boone, here's one of those evokers. Now, we're going to get to the biggest and scariest one here in a second, but again, it just shows you that Leaves Play was not the wording that needed to happen on this card. They could have literally just said died, and it would have worked 100% fine, and there would have been no stupid shenanigans and momentary blink.
I'm curious if they had to use Leave the Battlefield because they didn't use dies back then. Like now cards like, let's say Blood Artist says, whenever a creature dies, but they didn't have that in the template. They said whenever a creature would be put into its owner's graveyard.
So that's like would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield. Yeah. Well, back in the day, there was no battlefield, so yeah.
Yeah, put back in the graveyard. Yeah.
Or put into the graveyard from play.
Play. Yeah. And so I think it was really longer, and because they always had the reminder text of Evoke, just because Evoke was like not like that many sets, and it was kind of a weird card. Like you know, you want it on every card because it was just a weird ability. So I think maybe that was, and every single Evoke card had a come into play ability.
Yeah. Well, or it
leaves
had
play,
a leaves play ability, absolutely. And you know the leaves play abilities or the come into play abilities, like you know, it was a really cool. Evoke was just a fantastic way to look at creatures and to look at spells. And Shriekmaw was like obviously the best ever. Well, maybe second. Shriekmaw's a good man. But we'll get to Revelark here in a second. But regardless, you know, it was a really cool way of looking at the way you can use these cards, because you look at this card and you go, okay, he's a fine man as a 4-mana 3/3, but I need all my guys to be bigger.
Yeah.
And that's what you would do.
And most of them, like all the other Evoke cards that we'll get to later, like have varying casting costs between spell and evoke.
Right.
But the cool thing about
Meadowboon.
Meadowboon is that it was the same because of how his effect went with his like power and toughness. Like, I thought this was really cool. I think they tweaked this one a lot more back then than other ones. Like, it was just too expensive, or it was like too much power if it was cheaper than actually.
Oh
like
Lord,
4 mana.
you don't want that to be 3 or 2 mana god.
I mean, now it's
God
just
help us.
township. Now we have township. Like back then, there was no township. Like
Yeah,
this
township would have
huge
been
ability.
way too good. Like they would have made you pay 5 or 6 mana for
Yeah.
a township. But ultimately, a very good man. You're not going to draft him early, but you'll get him in the mid to late packs.
Yeah.
And he will go in almost every white. I can't imagine a white deck that doesn't want him.
No, because it's
just
like
a good man.
It's just a 3/3 for 4. If you don't have anything else to do, when he dies, you get some kind of an ability on your guy. Especially if you can play this into a Cloudgo Ranger, then you're like, thank you. You want to block this?
Gotcha.
But yeah, it always does something in the game, and that's what's really good about cards like this.
Right, and even when you're like mana screwed or you're playing a 3 or 4 color deck or whatever, like you can still evoke it for just 1 white mana.
Yep.
Like that is a cool thing, and I'm glad that those costs are different. I think that's sweet.
Yeah.
Otherworldly Journey, loved this card. From Champions, it was absolutely unreal. It was amazing.
I mean, I'm scared of cards like this with like how this set is designed. Like this card's really good in this set. Like we just got through what Evoke does.
Yes, we just explained Meadowboon, and like this card gives you a Meadowboon activation.
Yeah.
And it comes back as a 4/4.
I mean, it protects guys. You can remove your opponent's guys. Like if your opponent has like a guy you just need to get through, or if like your opponent is the rebel deck and he like put the aura on your guy, you can just bounce it and get a +1/+1 counter. Like this card will do a lot of good work, and it is worth a slot in a deck. I can promise you that you will want to play with this card.
This card is unreal. The best part is playing it on your opponent's creatures.
Yeah.
Like, because they like, I guarantee they're going to read it. They're going to be like, you can what? Like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, that was a very nice creature that you had.
That was a really awesome bomb you got. Okay, you can get rid of it. All right, sweet, thanks.
Think of how awesome this kind of card could be in like standard. I mean, I know removal is better, but like just even in standard where like your opponent could like steal guys, and then for just very cheap you can just like you can protect your guys against removal against Jund, or you can like finally top deck it, kill their Olivia at end of turn or bounce it, so then you get all your guys back and you attack them. Like
this card with Thragtusk is gross.
I wasn't even gonna go there with Thragtusk.
You don't have to go there. You always go to Thragtusk.
What about
right now,
Snapcaster Mage?
all roads lead to Thragtusky and goodness. That's what's happened. Like he's so good, everything is Thragtusk.
Are you kidding? Thragtusk isn't even that good anymore.
I guess.
He's not that good.
He's
Let's
a
look at
fine
the top.
man.
Well, were there any Thragtusk even in the top 8 of the Open that I top 8'd? I don't even think there was any.
I don't know about
I think it
all
was
that.
0.
I don't know about all that. I will say that this is a card that can't be printed while Thragtusk exists in a format because it's stupid. But
Yeah.
for that with that said, let's see. Nope. Yeah, Champions and Lorwyn Block never meshed either.
No,
so.
they never did.
And there's a reason. This card, and this is also one of those cards that was discovered really late. I remember back in the day, no one gave this card any credence, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, this card's really good, and let's play this card a lot. And then like Champions rotated and it's gone.
Well, I think that's like just one of the things about I've learned. I've been in Magic now over 10 years, and I've just realized every time a new set comes out, or every time a format rotates and a new set comes in and 3 go out, that like people just like slowly don't want to respect tempo. They're just like, yeah, I want to do all this sweet stuff, and like
no one's going to attack me, no one's going to carve out.
Let's just ignore tempo, just like gentleman's agreement. All right, I want to do all this sweet stuff. Let's just do it. And then like a month in, it's just like whatever costs 1, 2, and 3, and that's all you can play. You know,
Tempo's you gotta have your 1, 2, and 3 plan every single time. Otherworldly Journey is great. It's not a first pickable card, but you should get it in the mid to late pack if you can wheel it. You're most likely going to wheel it. This is a card that wheels a lot.
Yeah.
It isn't like respected. Maybe it will be in this format, but usually this is a card that I would see going late because people just don't give it the respect. Now, Pallid microderm.
And we get to the other cool creature type, which is funguses and thalids. And I never got into the thalid thing. Like, a lot of people love thalids.
I don't love them. I get why they like them. You know,
Yeah.
it's a creature type. It's not a sliver, and you know they work with each other sorta, and that's kind of cool. And they make their own thing. For a long time, it was the #1 way to kill someone on turn 1. Like, you know, it was a turn faster than Savannah Lines. If you played like Thalid every single turn, if you played a Thalid, and every single turn if you played a Savannah Lines, Thalids are like a turn faster.
Really? I didn't know that.
Because they make guys, you know, and like, you know, 1 counter a piece, and then they make guys, and then you get there. So until cards like Goblin Guide, until cards like Stromkirk Noble, like they was legitimately the best way to kill someone if all you had was a 1-mana creature.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Which is a little silly.
Yeah.
And no Magic game ever plays out like that. But if you're looking at like some ridiculous scenario of, you know, if you had all bears versus you had all X, like what would happen? Anyway, Pallid Microderm is a guy that just gives you value.
Yeah.
He builds a wall, which is his 2/4 butt, and then he just kind of sits out there, and you just make, you know, dudes.
Yeah, every
And then you
third
can pump
turn,
them if you want.
every 3 turns you get to make a 1/1, and like there's a bunch of other fungus in the format. So like they all have unique abilities. Some are more powerful than others, but it's great because how they work together is kind of sliver-ish. Is like even though they all make and they all have the special ability, one of them is probably just gonna be better than all the others. So you can just use the funguses that this Pallid can make, and sacrifice them to the other guy that has a way sweeter ability.
Absolutely, and you can do that with any of those. Essentially, you kind of slice and dice them. This is, you know, this is just a good man. He's okay.
Yeah.
He's not great. You're not freaking out over him.
Well, he helps your strategy because he shuts down aggression, and he gives, you know, the rest of your forest enough time to grow mushrooms. I don't know what analogy I should use for fungus and this, but
He's going deep, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you know, if they're running with the Amru Scout and the Amru Seekers, and they're trying to, like, this is what you would bound in silence. You would bound in silence your opponent's Pallid Microderm because you want to get rid of their wall and just keep bashing him with 2 power guys. Like, this guy actually does a lot more than you think he does, but I, again, think you get him probably like 8th pick plus.
oh yeah,
You know, you're probably able to wield
he's
this
not
guy.
sweet. That's the thing, is he's like not flashy.
Right. He's okay. He's
Yeah.
fine. He's not embarrassing.
Yeah.
He's just not Omagerd. Like
Dude,
Path to Exile.
yeah.
Ermagerd.
I'm so glad they didn't change this art ever. This has always been one of my favorite art. I just love the Leonin just like disappearing, you know, just getting evaporized. It also like makes me think a lot like I'm going Final Fantasy deep, but
Here
like
we go.
that's how things died in that pixelated world of Final Fantasy VII. Like when you killed something, it would just shatter away.
Yeah.
And I really see that, or like Kingdom Hearts style, like
Oh, the nostalgias.
Yeah.
All the nostalgias. This is a cool card. It came out in Conflux. It was, and as you can tell, it's the closest thing to Swords to Plowshares they've ever actually made. I also like how it's X to Y, like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. I think that's cool. It sucked at the time because they could not say exile target creature. You know, they had to say remove target creature from the game and then blah, 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 blah. It's called Path to Exile. They made the exile and they didn't come into play until I think like the next block. But now it does, and Mark Rosewater, the lead designer of Magic, as I understand it, does not enjoy this card that much because of it's so good. I mean, it's so universal. It's just 1 mana, just get rid of anything ever that doesn't have hexproof or shroud. Just goes away.
I definitely do like things that are situational when it comes to removal, but when it comes to constructed formats, cards like this I do appreciate because they just kill something and it lets the games progress.
And they try to have a drawback, you know.
Yeah, it was a drawback when cards weren't so efficient now. Like this card was not designed to work well with Geist of St. Traft.
Right.
And so now like they don't, like if you Path to Exile something and you attack with a Geist, like they have like what, 1 to 2 turns maybe to use that mana? Like that's not worth it. Like this card would give them boost for like 4 or 5 turns. Like that's really what it was doing back when it was printed, but now it's just a card that people get to use with all the new powerful cards. Same with like Snapcaster, and one of the cool things back in the day that we learned playing with this card is that the second one wasn't a drawback. Once they already had a mana advantage on you, it didn't matter. They had too much mana. There weren't cards like Gavany Township or Kessig Wolf Run, so it just didn't matter if they had 2 or 3 extra lands, they couldn't use it. So
I think it would have been a lot more interesting during Conflux Standard or whenever Conflux wasn't Standard to have a Gavany Township, to have a Kessig Wolf Run. That would have given a lot more interesting feel than back in the day when there was I think Treetop Village and stuff like that were in the format, but not, you know, like things you can sink mana into. where this card would really like be a more of a drawback. Nowadays, it's just awesome. Like if you don't have a bomb in your pack and you're in white, this is the card you pick. Just snap pick. First pick, no problem, because it's just good. But ideally, you should have something else that's kind of pointing you in directions. But one white mana solve anything is one white mana solve anything.
Actually, one of the coolest things you could do with this card, though, is there was a like landfall was an ability, and you could always path to exile your own guy and give your landfall creatures like more abilities. And
but you can only do that if you're winning, like literally
winning that turn,
that turn, literally. Not like I'm gonna win in a couple turns because I'm doing it. No, that turn. Otherwise, you look like an idiot. Lark.
This is like a fairly mediocre card. Never really had that much impact on Magic ever.
I don't know. I can't even remember what it does.
There was actually a deck. There was a deck that was blue and white, and this is after Baneslayer came out. And instead of playing Lark, you played Baneslayer, and its deck name was No Lark because it was the first time that a deck that was blue and white didn't play Lark.
Wow!
Like that, it was actually like that. That was the universal name. It was called No Lark.
I want to say, like, this was a long time ago, but I want to say that when there was, I think it was Tom Lapelli was trying to get an R&D, and this, of course, is back when before this was ever even spoiled, this before, way before that. He was trying to get R&D, and they sent him a test, and the test was, here's Morningtide. Like, they gave him the set. They're like, here's the set. We want you to find the biggest mistake in it. This was it. Now, granted, Bitter Blossom existed, but this was the mistake because power 2 or less is not converted mana cost 2 or less, and that's where it got into all the trouble. Yeah. Because then you could start looping, you could loop through Mirror Entity and Body Double, and then you would create this loop of, I can just keep pushing my creatures through this loop and get these incremental advantages, and bleh, you're dead. Like,
there's a lot of like big powerful things this card could do. There's a lot of combos. It was just like not really that fair because it's like clones. Like you do things with clones and get back clones. And
when Body Double was a 0/0, then that meant you could get a clone from your graveyard. Now Body Double is normally 5 mana, so if this had said converted mana cost 2 or less, you'd have been just fine.
Yeah.
But power 2, things got weird, things got broke, things got unfortunate, and bleh. Now for what it's a great limited card. It's amazing. This card is awesome. You want to, if not first pick it, you want to pick it really super early because I hope you picked like an Elspeth or something over it because this card's dumb. This card.
I mean, if you just get that pack, just like you're just lucky. Like
you win. I mean, whatever. But this card, it's a 4 power flyer for 5 mana. First of all.
Yeah.
And then it's got this incredible upside that no one wants to get rid of it. Or if you otherworldly journey it, you return like 2 rebels. And then it comes back with a +1/+1 counter.
Do we have Muldrifters in this set? I forgot.
I
think so.
Think so.
We'll figure it out. You guys can tell us there is a Muldrifter. All right, so we get to Muldrifter Lark in this set. All right, so let's just say if you've never played any of these cards, if you open this and you take this, there is a card that you must not pass, and you'll thank me later. It's called Muldrifter. Just take it.
It's unreal.
We'll talk about it later.
We're getting there. It's sweet. All right, keep going. Saltfield Recluse. He's a man for your Amru Scout to go find.
He is a good rebel. I am very sad. I'm very sad. I don't remember the name of this card. I was going to look it up before we got in here, but I forgot. But it was from the same set, and it was like a transmuter. It was like 2 colorless blue, and it gave a creature. It switched power and toughness.
Okay.
And so in the limited format,
like Merfolk.
Yeah, it was like a Merfolk.
I think it was a Merfolk.
But all it did is switch your opponent's creature's power and toughness. But I would always combo it with this card and like shotgun all of their 2-powered creatures. Yeah.
I want to say that was the Merfolk Thaumaturgist or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
Which was like a call. It was had a weird future frame. It had one of those weird planar chaos future frames, and that was the actual example in the Foresight talk I talked about earlier, where he was like, one of his R&D guys is like, why does this look weird? Yeah. I literally have no idea why this card looks weird, and it's because it was like this in-joke from Weatherlight of this is the blue version of the red card from Weatherlight. I'm like, dude, the entire planar chaos and sort of future sight mess was like they just went too deep. Right? Yeah. And he brought up a couple examples of like this card is actually a mesh of this card and that card. And it's got art from this and art from that. And like 12 people on the planet got this card. But man, the people who did
successful joke.
Yes, but the people who got it were just like, this is the coolest thing of all time. And like 99% of every Magic player is like, well, I don't know what the hell's happening here. Yeah. So there's that. But as a card by itself, without the Thaumaturgist or whatever, like he's going to do good things. He's going to wreck combat steps. Your opponent doesn't want to attack into it. Like, this is a limited environment that is going to be complex.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to be okay with complex board states, and of course we are. We love that crap, but like, you know, you got to be okay with that because this card solves it. Or not
causes it.
Causes it. Thank you. This is a card that sort of introduces like what happens every time you attack.
Oh yeah, you have to think about a bunch of things when cards like this are on the board, and it's super good. Like the new formats, it's like Blood Rush and all these like removal and all these ways to like pump your guys. Like, I like that they don't print these cards anymore. I really do like on-board tricks are getting away from Magic, because like when new players are introduced to the game, I don't really want to blow them out with Recluse. I like, it just feels bad. It's like, well, actually you kind of did this wrong, and I don't even have a card in hand. You just kind of like, your attack was bad, so I get to like kill this and do this. Like, I like that Magic's moving away from that, because it just feels better to not have to like have that conversation with my opponent.
Yeah, for me, like, in terms of my number one rule for how to get better at Magic is to never lose to onboard tricks.
Yes.
That's the number one rule. You can't lose to what's sitting there in front of you, and this type of a limited environment gives you a million different ways to do that.
Yeah.
With evoke and activated abilities and blah 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 gets pumped by such and such.
We have gotten there. I love my value and I love this card.
The card is awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
It was so good in charge block. I like took all of them. Like a 2/3 flyer for 4 isn't even like that bad.
That's not bad at all.
You're getting back value, especially with like spell bombs in the format. You can get back some of the artifact creatures that come back. Like, this card is the real deal, and it's like complements these artifact strategies. Like, the more copies of this in your deck, the better your deck is, because they chain each other.
I was about to say, you know, my favorite creature to return back is itself.
Yeah.
I love remembering to Sanctum Gargoyle with a Sanctum Gargoyle, and then you just like create this loop of like, well, I got infinite blockers for your stupidly huge thing until I can find something that solves it.
And maybe you have like an Arcbound Ravager that you like opened up, and that's why you're going into the artifact deck. So now you can like gain value that way. And
absolutely, this is a good man. He's not a first pickable bomb. He's a super good man.
Totally first pickable. He's so good. You can take him. So good.
Sandsower directly from Ravnica.
Yep.
He's showing up.
He has returned from Ravnica.
How's here? Oh, cheerio, my good man. Oh my God. Anyway, so a 1/3 that is innocuous, but with like Sin's Enlistment that we saw earlier. This card's actually unreal.
Yeah,
you're going to destroy some people with this card.
They definitely like were trying. Like, there wasn't a lot of great things you could do with him in that form, especially once we got to the whole block. Like, when he was alone in Ravnica, he was good.
Triple Ravnica, he was an all-star.
Yeah, but when the whole set came out, like, the Selesnya decks weren't that good, and that was I think a problem with the way that they designed Ravnica and how it worked. Like, you never wanted to draft Selesnya in that format.
You really didn't want to unless you
got stuck.
Yeah. What's the green-white enchantment that you tap a guy to tap a guy?
Oh, Glare of Subdual.
Glare of Subdual, thank you. So Glare of Subdual aside,
yeah.
I thought the Dimir deck in Triple Ravnica was unreal. This was the Mill deck, you know.
Yeah.
And this is a card that would go in it because it has a high toughness versus power, and you can tap a bunch of your guys to tap down their like super powerful stuff or their super aggressive stuff, and you know, ultimately it can tap itself, which is a big thing, and you know, tap 2 other creatures in itself to tap a guy. Like, that's going to be really important in these sort of grindy matches that last a long time. It's another activated ability you have to think about, so it complicates the board some more, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's a very, I like the card. Like, 1/3 body is great for an ability like this, because if they have a bunch of small guys, you don't have to use his ability. At the end of the turn, you can tap down anything that can defend. Like you said, Sen's Enlistment and this guy are going to like do very dirty things together, because they slow the game down and they allow the extra lands that you draw to do more things. Like, they just work really well together. So don't just jam this in an aggressive deck, though. This is like not the card you want in just a straight aggression, because he doesn't attack that well, and you want your guys attacking and not being used for other things. But when you have a mid-rangey deck that has a lot of value creatures and like a lot of long game or mid game, this is a great place to be.
Yeah, when you're playing the aggressive, bear deck, he's not what you want.
Yeah, Sen's Enlistment and Thalids, I think, are going to be great for this guy.
Yeah, that's sort of a whole deck really unto itself, honestly. Stir the Pride.
I have a question real quick.
Stir it up real fast.
All right. Is because this is before Lifelink changed, is this going to have old Lifelink rules?
Well, because they literally say whenever this deals damage, you gain that much life. If it has Lifelink and you play Stir the Pride, you get both.
Yes, but because of this, I just want to, anyone that hasn't dealt with this, I don't want them to like feel bad about this ability, right? Because like, I just want to say the old rules.
This is where if damage like is on the stack and you bolt them or something or whatever, or the damage that happens.
If your opponent attacks with a bunch of guys and you give your guys lifelink and just to stay alive. This isn't lifelink anymore. I just want to say, because like this was a fill bad back in the day. So back in the day when they said whenever creatures, instead of saying lifelink, would say whenever this creature deals damage, you gain this much life. But it was a trigger. So let's just say you have a 3/3 and I have 2/2/2s, and I attack you with both of them because you're at 2, and you would block with this creature that says when this creature deals damage, it gains this much life. You would block, and then you'd go to 0, and then have a trigger for 3 life on the stack.
And you're dead.
And that's what this card is going to do. But I just wanted to say that because it was a very big feel bad, and we'd have to call a judge, and I felt terrible.
And that happened a long time until they literally changed lifelink to work how you would sort of expect it to work. You're like, I wouldn't die in that situation. Well, you would with this card because this is a card that, you know, like they didn't want to go back and change all the cards that said this whenever this creature deals damage, you gain that much life, to lifelink, because that's kind of weird. All right, like when you can get kind of a rata happy, as it were, and you don't want to go too crazy with it. So I appreciate the fact they left like Armadillo Cloak alone. They left this card alone. But again, when you have a win or a whenever or an at on a Magic card, that is a triggered ability, and if you're at 0, you're dead.
And now that we've explained that, this card is awesome. Like, it's a really good limited palm. Like, it's a very long game card. Like, for 5 mana, just giving your whole team +2/+2 can blow them out when you attack. But when you go really long and you're both racing with like 2 or 3 guys, just being able to gain that 10 life can be really important.
You're going to gain infinite. Like, it could be a lot more than that.
Yeah, like if the board's really clogged and you like, I don't want to die to an onboard trick, and you have this with 7 mana, just jam. If it's like 8 against 8 creatures, just do it. Like, you're going to gain so much life, it doesn't really matter. Like,
you're going to be able to trade for infinite, always value, and then you're going to be able to up infinite life, so it doesn't matter.
This is the perfect card to have in your hand, and when you have that situation where it's just like, don't want to think, I kind of just want to see what happens. We'll just figure it out.
Turn them sideways, you got 7 mana, let's see what's going on. That's awesome. It's a fine card. Stone Hewer Giant.
There are some good artifacts in this set, and a lot better artifacts than when he was originally around, I think.
It's true.
Yeah, so like, if you ever open an awesome equipment, you gotta take this card.
Well, if you open the Sophie, well, congratulations. And secondly, obviously you're going to pick this guy pretty highly. Ultimately, he was really exciting at the time, but it didn't really last very long.
No.
There was this other card.
What?
I don't know. It's a Squire or something.
A Squire? Like, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. Something found stuff, put stuff. Who knows?
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out.
We'll put it together. Now, Stone Hewer Giants basically is a 5 mana 4/4 vigilance. Is good. If you got equipment, he's better, and you know he's a fine man. It's the fact that it actually, you search it and you put it on the battlefield and you attach it to a creature. That's a really sweet thing.
Well, the worst part about this card is like, think of limited, and your opponent plays. It's like, well, that's worth playing in limited, and then he attacks you, and you're like, I have this 4/4, and I don't really know if you have an equipment, but you're gonna attack no matter what. Like, I can't block because you might just blow me out. You know, like giving this card visual is just unfair. I don't get why, but
I love why. I love because I think of that very scenario, because it's fun to say like, I guess I block with my 4 power guy, and then you search for equipment, the guy is completely blown out. Or you don't have any equipment and you were just bluffing anyway. It doesn't matter. But like the fact that this guy has that ability is super sweet. Tarashi's Grasp.
One of my favorite disenchant effects. Like, this was super powerful. It even saw constructed play.
It did.
Yeah. And it's our first arcane spell. And now arcane is an amazing ability we'll get to later. But for pretty much, there's the ability to play an arcane spell and put a spell on top of it and then put it back in your hand for a cost. And it's this cool ability that we got to do. And like, there are people out there though, and I think he's one of them. Look at him. He's just like, he's already getting excited about arcane. Like, I'm not one of these guys anymore. I might have been before, but like
I mean, one of these guys.
Like, just that we'll just take small amounts of incremental
I will
advantage.
dampen thought your face off. Son. Don't make me, because it's awesome. This card is sweet. Arcane was this idea that like spells are like, there's a different type of spell and there's a cool spell that you can kind of like tape to it, and so all of a sudden there's double spells, which is sweet. I think ultimately Wizards recognized that Arcane was a mistake in that it should have just been splice onto instant, splice onto sorcery versus splice onto arcane, because it's so, I don't want to use the word incestuous, but it's very, very sort of its own concealed world. You know, like there's only, it's this sealed world where in Kamigawa it was awesome, and outside of Kamigawa it was garbage. And all of the spells are sort of priced weird. Like, you see this, and it's a sorcery instead of an instant, and you have the life gain ability, which is awesome, but that's normally an instant for 3 mana for that ability, not a sorcery. All the spells had to be worse because they were arcane spells, because you could do all this other cool stuff to splice onto them. And we'll see on that. We'll take a look at that later.
And we'll get to cards that like let you return arcane spells to your hand and not just instant or sorcery. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean it was awesome, but at the end of the day, like arcane was something that never really interested in me.
It was
I
just
like those big dragons they printed.
Well, there was the soul shift stuff. Soul shifts kind of had the same problem.
Yeah.
Now I don't believe there's any soul shift in Modern Masters, but in Kamigawa blog, spirits would die and they would soul shift for, if there was a 6 mana spirit, it would soul shift for 5. So a 5 mana converted mana cost spirit or less, you could bring back from the graveyard to play. So you kind of sort of like chain them up. But then that made every creature cost 1 more, just like this made every spell cost 1 more.
Did it go into play or into your hand?
It might actually go to your hand because
I
back
think
then
so,
cards were worse. So a card would come back to your hand, so you could kind of create this loop, and it was neat.
Yeah.
But every card was more expensive, and that made all the
It was a
tournament
very
spikes care
slow
about cost.
environment, yeah.
So all the tournament spikes were just like, this card's cool, but now I gotta pay 2 mana for my 1/1 and 3 mana.
And a lot of the other spells that weren't any of these spirits and these arcane spells were just busted. So like we just all play with those cards.
Right. So you just sort of ignored the entire swath of arcane, the entire swath of the spirit and soul bond, or not soul bond, the whole spirit sub theme that they had. Test of Faith, cool card. Fifth Dawn, I think it's Fifth
Yes,
Dawn.
you're correct.
Fifth Dawn, yes.
Was it uncommon back then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Now it's been bumped down. So go Popper.
Yeah, I mean there's some big updates to Popper. We'll get those
The
on the
common
next
and the
videos.
uncommon cubes and stuff.
Whew. No, but the actual Popper format got a big one later on. It's massive, but
We'll talk about
it's
it.
gross actually. I don't even want it to be in the format.
I do. Test of Faith. This is actually really a sweet one.
Yeah, it's great. Like you can prevent up to 3 damage to target creature, and then it gets bigger, and that's just awesome. Like think about if I take you with a 2/3 and you block with a 2/3, and I'm like, Test of Faith, I got a 6/6.
Right. Or I just like smash into your 4/4 because I know you're gonna be like, well, you gotta have it. All right, well next term he's gonna be a 6/6. I'm cool with that. Or they bolt your 3/3, and you're like, nope, Test of Faith, he's a 6/6. Like that happens a lot, and that's exactly what you want to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And so this card's not always a main deckable card because it is a situational spell, but I do like it against a lot of green-based aggressive decks in limited or red or whatever's trying to beat you down. This card can be really good, but it'll probably be a very good sideboard card in certain matchups.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're sort of upselling the biggest upsides, as it were, but Test of Faith as a card, like it's going to work great against the aggressive decks, not going to be so good against the control decks who don't really have a lot of those dorks that you can trade up with. But when I attack my 2/1 into your 3/3, like you need to know something's probably up. Something's getting weird. Fine card. Don't pick it anywhere near the first 8 picks.
No.
Veteran Armorer. Good man.
Like this man. He's good. I just like that. It's just a 2/2 that gives all your other creatures a benefit. And he's small, and you can get. It's not too much of an upside, so you won't trade with him. Like I'll just send him sometimes. But he definitely does some really cool, interesting things to games, especially in a format with a bunch of 1/2s. Like 1/1s are not as good as 1/2s, and like they trade up. You can block a bunch of guys. Like just think of a 3/3 where you have to trade 3 tokens against. Now you just trade 1 token because they all have this benefit. So
yeah, that's a huge one. Where you have 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, and you just like chump block all of it. You're like, all right, you get one guy with your 3/3. And this is the guy that makes that
And
happen.
a man that's very afraid of like trickery. I love a world where a guy that can protect all my stuff.
Yeah. Good man, awesome bear. Don't pick early, but super sweet regardless. We'll make your white decks pretty much every time. Yosei!
The start of the Mythic Dragon set.
Oh my God, I got love for this dragon. He's been in my cube from day one. I love Yosei. I played Yosei in the Greater Good deck.
Oh,
it was super awesome. Oh my God, I got
That
to
deck
play.
was too good.
The deck was sweet. Man, I got to play Tatsumasa. I got to play Genju of the Fields. And back then, it did say whenever it deals damage again
so
that
you
much
just gotta
life.
do it
So
a
my
bunch of times.
Tatsumasa would attach to my 2/5 Genju, and then I would activate Genju, gain 7, activate Genju, gain 7, activate Genju, gain. So I would like gain 28, 35 life every single swing until I drew Yosei, and I would Greater Good, lock down all their stuff, activate Genju.
This card is almost unbeatable in limited. It's like way too powerful.
Oh, it's insane. It's ridiculous. I mean, a dragon by himself is awesome. This dragon, Oh.
Yeah, it's
It
not
does
even the.
gross
It's not
things.
just the 5 permanents that you target. It
Yes.
just says all of them and then whatever they have left. So if they attacked you, you're like, all right, all your lands. You
Yeah.
can't play anything, and all your guys don't
I'll
untap.
trade and nothing, and next turn you can't untap anything.
Yeah.
And if you should be winning the game through those turns. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
these dragons are very powerful, and this saw the most constructed play of all of them.
Yes, it did. I'll never forget. Let's see, the guy. This was in Ravnica team constructed PTQs.
Yeah.
And I was playing the Greater Good, Yosei, Genju of the Field, Satsumasa, whatever. And he was playing the mirror, but I drew better. I drew the Tatsumasa Genju before he did. The man he sacrificed his Yosei 4 times. I skipped 4 untapped steps, and I still won that game easily.
Wow.
Because I just looped through so many Genjus. I had like 112 life. And I looped through so many Yoseis. I was like, all right, man, do whatever you got to do. I'm all tapped out. Draw a card, go. It was awesome. Yosei is amazing. Wow.
It's a really good card.
Windmill first pick.
Yes.
Windmill first pick. Guys.
Unless you have a foil Elspeth.
Yeah. Then you win.
You
and
win.
that means
That is.
we're at the end of our white cards today.
That's it.
Oh, the white cards are sweet.
The white cards are amazing.
Oh, and they all do certain things. You can also see the archetypes that are starting to sort of come out.
I do have
There's
to say, yeah.
so much power in there.
Yeah, like the thing about this set is, as we go on, as you watch the rest of these videos, you're going to see all of the cards come together. Like, you're going to see that there's actually like an Orzhov Rebel deck, and that there is, a Selesnya fungus deck, and like that's really how this format feels to me. And like when I see the individual cards, I'm like, well, that's cool for Modern. And then when I see the set together,
format,
I'm just like, I actually think this is kind of cool. Like, I was not sold on this set until I saw the set. And
when I
like,
saw the full spoiler, I
Yep.
was just like, guys, you really have crafted a really terrific limited environment. You made a really cool cube.
and they had to, right? Like, they didn't know what was going to happen. They designed the set a couple years ago. They didn't know what we were going to react. And so they had to make it awesome, and that's what they did. And I'm really impressed, and I can't wait for this to become a product that I actually get to draft with.
I agree. Part of me wishes it was not worth so much, so
Yeah.
I could just draft it
Well,
more.
see, the thing is I spend many hours a week grinding Moto, so I will incinerate some money. That's fine. Once we get there, yeah, we will incinerate those Moto tickets to just get these drafts in.
I can't do it because I got 5 kids.
I've got 0.
So one of us can play more Modern Masters drafts.
That's
than the others.
true.
It's crazy.
Hey, I'll tell you all about it.
I know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our white set review for Modern Masters. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Next up, we're going to take a look at the blue cards. And if you,
There's some good ones.
I know, if you're, feeling froggy and ready to leap, let's go. Until then, I'm Evan Irwin,
I'm Brad Nelson.
and we're tapping the cards.
So you don't have to. I did it right that time.
You sure did.
I did.
Proud of you, buddy.